Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to October 7th, 2020. In this video, after President Donald Trump went on Twitter to call off negotiations between the administration and House Democrats for the next round of stimulus, the president went on a tweet storm and offered to sign bills funding the airline industry's payroll support system, the Paycheck Protection Program loans, and another round of $1,200 stimulus checks for all Americans. Nonetheless, the president failed to offer to sign a bill that would mandate that the Small Business Administration disperse the full $10,000 economic injury disaster loan grant to all legitimate small business applicants and the $50,000 grant, or 6 months of revenue minus cost of goods, that would become a grant that you could pay your economic injury disaster loan grant that we brought into the spotlight. Yes, you and me, ladies and gentlemen, by collaborating and reaching out to the Problem Solvers Caucus right before they packaged $50 billion for the economic injury disaster loan grant program. President Donald Trump yesterday called off negotiations for the next round of stimulus. He went on Twitter and ordered that his representatives stop negotiating with the Democrats. He accused the Democrats of failing to negotiate in good faith, that they wanted $2.4 trillion when you know very well that Democrats passed the bill at $2.2 trillion. Not sure if that was something that he mistyped or he just simply wanted to make it appear that Democrats were farther apart, that they were making their bill or their offer farther apart from what the administration wants, which is a $1.6 trillion deal calling for $400 in enhanced unemployment insurance payments, another round of stimulus checks, and $250 billion for state and local governments and business liability protections, which you know is also pork, ladies and gentlemen, because the Chamber of Commerce has been pumping millions of dollars in favor of GOP candidates in federal races, while Democrats, they're in the pockets of the Trial Lawyers Association that has been pumping millions of dollars in federal races in favor of Democrat candidates to ensure that they block any proposals for business liability protection. So it's the clash of the two lobbying titans in that particular respect. So now he's offering these standalone bills. He went on Twitter and posted, "I'll go ahead and sign a standalone bill funding the airline industry, $25 billion, with $25 billion for their payroll support system, $135 billion for the Paycheck Protection Program loan, and another round of $1,200 stimulus checks for all Americans." Now, if he said this a month ago, it would probably, it'd be a lot more likely that Congress would potentially go for it. They were in session. They're not in session right now. And House Speaker Nancy Pelosi went on record to say that she would potentially move on a standalone bill for funding for the airlines. Nonetheless, several times, time and time again. As a matter of fact, one of her Democratic chairs actually tried to push a standalone bill funding the airlines. Nonetheless, GOP lawmakers blocked it. But she has gone on record time and time again accusing the president of only wanting to send a $1,200 check with his name on it. In other words, a marketing ploy for his re-election campaign. Also, New York Congresswoman representing that state's 14th district in the Bronx, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, also told The Hill that she will not back a bill that will only allow the president to send out a $1,200 check with his name on it. Their argument is that they also want money for the 14 million children who are food insecure and other needs that have to be met for the American people, such as funding for state and local governments that many of them are lining up layoffs and furloughs to essential care workers. And she wants to give these states funding to avoid layoffs of essential healthcare workers, police officers, firefighters, sanitation workers, transportation workers, teachers. Nonetheless, as I have just said, administration is only calling for $250 billion for state and local governments. Democrats want $436 billion for state and local governments. That was a key sticking point. They also want the next round of stimulus, and they called for that $50,000 grant. Now, as it stands, Democrats and the GOP stand around $1 trillion apart. GOP lawmakers want a bill in the neighborhood of $800 billion to $1.5 trillion. They don't want a penny more. They don't want anything close to $2 trillion. According to, I believe it was the Washington Post, when President Donald Trump went on that infamous call with Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell and Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin and House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, Senate Majority Leader, Senator from Kentucky, Mitch McConnell, told the president that Speaker Pelosi was just stringing him along in any deal that she would be able to cut with Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin had no chance of passing in the Senate. That he would not go against the majority of his GOP, the majority of his GOP conference, which wants a bill at $800 billion to $1.5 trillion. And as you very well know, the last proposal that the GOP put out that they failed to pass, nonetheless, they got a small majority vote. They didn't even call for another round of stimulus checks. So that's where we're at right now, ladies and gentlemen. No one knows whether the talks are going to continue. Nonetheless, this president, your president, President Donald J. Trump, failed to offer signing legislation that would fund and mandate that the Small Business Administration disperse the full $10,000 economic injury disaster loan grant to all legitimate small business applicants, ladies and gentlemen, pursuant to S.4227, that the U.S. Senate Committee on Small Business and Entrepreneurship are currently working on. It has 8 co-sponsors. It's a bipartisan bill because Jackie Rosen, senator from Nevada, and Republican Texas Senator John Cornyn introduced this bill. But it doesn't get any light, ladies and gentlemen. So we have to push this into the spotlight, ladies and gentlemen. And he also failed to offer to sign a bill funding that $50,000 Lifeline grant that Democrats packaged in their $2.2 trillion updated HEROES Act. And why did they include it? Because once we heard that the Problem Solvers Caucus were about to unveil a bill that on which both sides can compromise, the Problem Solvers Caucus has 25 GOP lawmakers, 25 Democrat lawmakers. I told you, and we collaborated, and I applaud each and every one of you, each and every one. That's why I love each and every one of you. In this small channel with 9,000 plus, closely approaching 10,000 subscribers, I thank you. I thank each and every one of you for our support, for helping, because you have pushed the envelope. You have ensured, you've gotten us closer, just like my man Jason Mack says, closer to that 1-inch yard line, ladies and gentlemen, to help all American small businesses. Let me just continue. We went ahead and we contacted the chairman of the Problem Solvers Caucus, and we told them that, and I called them myself. I called them, and I'm guessing a lot of you called them and you emailed them. You called New Jersey Congressman representing that state's 5th district, Josh Gottheimer, Democrat, and Republican Tom Reed representing New York's 5th district. And we called them, we let them know, listen, in your bill, you have to include funding for S.4227, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Grant. The staff person with whom I spoke, I believe her name was Jessica or so, I forgot her name, but she didn't even hear about it. Yeah, she's like, all right, we're gonna let the congressman know that everyone that you represent, the hundreds of thousands to millions of small business owners who are demanding that the SBA disperses the full $10,000 economic injury disaster loan grant to all legitimate small business applicants, that they include that in their bill. And they relayed that message because the next day they unveiled the bill, and what? We got it called for $50 billion for the economic injury disaster loan program. It could not have been for the loan because SBA still has money to disperse more loans. They still have over $100 billion to disperse more loans. So it had to be for the grant, and we confirmed that it was for the grant when the $2.2 trillion legislation, it fixes the statutory language in the CARES Act that gives the Small Business Administration the discretion to disperse grants at $1,000 per employee, a pumpkin pie slice per employee, whatever they thought was fit to disperse, to pay out to small businesses. The lawmakers on both sides of the aisle, Democrat Senator Ben Cardin, representing Maryland, He engineered the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Grant, and the way that he wrote it, that small businesses may request that the administrator pay out this grant. He never mandated. So the bill first fixed the statutory language and included the word shall. The administrator shall disperse a grant to small businesses. And it included $40 billion in order to disperse funds through another round of the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Grant and the SBA Lifeline Grant of $50,000 or 6 months of revenue minus cost of goods sold for businesses with 50 employees or less that can show an 8-week revenue loss between March 2nd and December 31st, 2020 of 30% or greater when compared to the same period last year. It's going to include businesses owned by socially and economically disadvantaged individuals according to federal law, veteran-owned businesses where more than 50% of the employees are low-income individuals, and businesses, recreational businesses that have suffered revenue losses due to the emergency closures of the U.S. and Canadian border. And other businesses also qualify for the program. We've gone through it. I've gone ahead and read you the text time and time. Go ahead and watch the previous videos. And if you still need more information, let me know. I'll go and keep dropping it for you, because this is for you. This is for us, ladies and gentlemen, the American people. The American people. I don't identify myself as a Democrat or Republican. You know how I feel about it. I feel it's just like me and Jason Mack going back and forth. I love the Giants. He loves Dallas. But whatever, at one particular point in time, I may like Dallas if they're playing up against a team that I don't like. So regardless, it's just, we're fans of these people, understand? Because they're not even loyal to their own parties. You see how once they leave their positions in office, they go out and they represent industries that their political affiliation or their previous political affiliation never even supported, like John Boehner, Republican, House Speaker. Now he's a lobbyist for the cannabis industry. Understand? And anything that is favoring the cannabis industry, that's why GOP actually labeled the HEROES Act as a Democrat wish list, because of all the times they mentioned funding for the cannabis industry. So nobody is loyal to anybody. They don't care about anybody but themselves. Forget about all those arguments that they don't want to add on to the debt. If adding on to the debt puts more money in their pockets, they will go for it, ladies and gentlemen. So our objective right now is to ensure that we continue to push the $10,000 Economic Injury Disaster Loan Grant pursuant to S.4227 and the $50,000 grant, the SBA Lifeline Grant, that we will be able to use to pay off our economic injury disaster loans, to make that a grant, or just use it so you can survive through this thing, because the pandemic, it's not your fault. It's not your fault that the pandemic absolutely disrupted and destroyed this economy, ladies and gentlemen. Lo and behold, the economic cataclysm. At 7.9% unemployment, we are not out of the woods yet. Just like Dr. Conley said about the president. He wants to state that he's strong and that we can beat this thing. Say that to the 207,000 people that the virus has killed, ladies and gentlemen. So I want you to go ahead and tweet the man up at top, where the buck stops, ladies and gentlemen, in the federal government. Who? President Donald Trump himself. Twitter.com/RealDonaldTrump, and let them know that you want your EIDL. Go ahead and hashtag EIDL. I'll go ahead and post it in the comments. I'm limited as to what I can do because I'm actually on the phone. I don't have Wi-Fi yet. I just moved into a new place. And that's why I even have you on a Project Studio reflection filter. Hopefully the audio is a little better. We got a lot of echo because this room is empty down here in the basement. Though, let's go ahead and let him know. We want a $10,000 EIDL $10,000 grant, S.4227, so he can start mentioning it, because with his announcements yesterday, now stimulus is a re-election issue. It's an election campaign issue. Once he starts mentioning these things, he's always mentioning the Paycheck Protection Program, and this thing gets funded. It was never capped. It's always been at $10 million. Why? Because they could use the Paycheck Protection Program, lawmakers and public officials, to pay back political favors, ladies and gentlemen. They couldn't do it with the economic injury disaster loan because if they pay somebody $150,000, let's say they would have given an economic injury disaster loan, and first off, it's not even forgivable to Dan Gilbert, who gave the president a loan $750,000. He's the owner of the Cleveland Cavaliers and owner of Rocket Companies that is now public. He's now the richest man in the world, and he basically partnered with RER Solutions, the Virginia-based government contractor, to process economic injury disaster loan grants. So you can't give him one, you can't pay him back all these political favors, $150,000. He would have been taking a loss at that particular point in time. Understand what I'm saying? But he can pay all these other people back millions of dollars because the PPP never got capped. You can, if you qualify, you can receive a Paycheck Protection Program loan of up to $10 million, ladies and gentlemen. And the same things we've been talking about on this channel time and time again, that $2.2 trillion legislation is also blocking the Small Business Administration from capping economic injury disaster loans at $150,000 or $15,000 or $1, whatever it is that they want to give out. They would have to disperse loans of up to $2 million to all legitimate small business applicants. So I want you to tweet the president, I want my $10,000 EIDL grant and my $50,000 SBA Lifeline grant. Plain and simple. So once we get his attention, he mentions it as a selling point to try to mobilize his base and get everyone to reelect him. And once he does that, the Democrat candidate, Joe Biden, will also have to start mentioning and state, all right, you know what, you're going to give money for that, for the economic injury disaster, or perhaps the Democrat candidate, former Vice President Joe Biden, will catch on to that. All these people are requesting the economic injury disaster loan grant, and he puts it up into the limelight. Not only the PPP, because the squeaky wheel gets the oil, the economic injury disaster loan grant, it has to get enough exposure. And $50,000, you could probably get it's only for 50 employees or less, so it's not going to be for businesses that it's worth paying back any political favors, because as I told you, all these politicians care about is ensuring that Amazon, Apple, and all these big organizations, public companies that line their pockets day in, day out, lawmakers on both sides of the aisle, that they get paid. Nonetheless, when it comes down to the small business owner who operates businesses that constitute 99.9% of all businesses in this country, zero, ladies and gentlemen. So we have to let them know. Again, tweet Real Donald Trump, twitter.com/Real Donald Trump. I want my $10,000 hashtag EIDL S.4227 and $50,000 SBA Lifeline Grant. Let me know what you think. Drop your comments in the comment section below. Watch this video right here for more economic injury disaster loan grant and stimulus coverage. Click the like button if you liked the video. Click the subscribe button to stay on top of my findings, and go ahead and click that bell so YouTube can notify you every time I'm uploading this stuff, because we're going to get a lot more frequent now that I'm done with the move. May God bless each and every one of you. May God bless the United States of America and everybody else on this planet. Talk soon.